Alongside the two new Battle Force boxes that we got shown around a month ago, the Veterans of the Long War and the Dread Talons Battle Forces, both of which give you a really good way to start a new Chaos army with a load of Legionaries, Chosen, Possessed and Terminators, or the more fast-moving Dread Talon set, which nets you some Raptors, Cultists, and of course that Demon Prince. But in addition to those two, Chaos are getting a regular brand new Combat Patrol as well. Now, I said in the previous video that I thought of the two battle forces, the Veterans of the Long War was the best out of the two, although they do both net you around the usual 30% saving that we've come to expect from these sets, and they get you a good significant number of models and points. I think we worked out that around 700 points or so was included in the Dread Talons box and around 900 points for the Veterans box, so both of them are really rather good. But today I thought we'd take a look at the new Combat Patrol which has been showcased, see what kind of savings you'll be making on it, see what is in it, and whether that is going to be the better route for you to get into a new Chaos army rather than either of the battle forces. Now, straight off the bat, the new Combat Patrol is quite a bit smaller than the battle forces. They usually are, so that's not unsurprising. And of course, it is going to be cheaper. The Combat Patrols are usually around £95, and the battle forces and those bigger style sets tend to come in at around 130 or 140. So whilst you will be getting more in the battle forces, you are going to be paying more for it too, and it's kind of just going to depend how much you want to spend and just what you actually need and want from those boxes. So in the Combat Patrol, you get yourself a really nice little set of infantry models. You get 10 Legionaries, 10 Cultists, 5 Possessed, and they are all led by the very cool Master of Possession. It is, to be honest, a nice selection of models. They are all reasonably new. I think the oldest ones out of this are the Chaos Marines and the Master of Possession, which came out in the Shadowspear box, which I keep thinking is like 2 years old, but actually it came out in 2019. So that's like still 5 years old now, which is just makes me feel old. But in terms of GW models, they are all relatively new, so they do all fit in with the amazing new updated Chaos aesthetic, and they're all very nicely detailed and designed, and slightly upsized too, compared to some of the older Chaos range, so they do fit in a little bit better when you are fighting against those bigger Primaris models, for instance. It looks to be around 455 points all in. The Master of Possession comes in at 80 points, 5 Possessed are 140, 10 Legionaries are 180, and then the 10 Cultists are 55. So as I said, it is a good bit smaller than the Battle Forces, but it's not actually too terrible in terms of points from Combat Patrols. We've seen a few recently in 10th edition that were really small. I think there were a couple that were sort of like low mid 300 points. So you do get a reasonable amount of models from this. It gets you an army which will be just a shade under 500 points if you add an enhancement and you're playing it in regular 40k games, for example. It's also not too bad in terms of the models themselves. The Legionaries and Cultists are solid all-rounder troops, and the Master of Possession and Possessed are both very good, especially together, at least currently in the current index. The Master of Possession can join the Possessed, and he grants them a really nice combo of not only a 6-up Feel No Pain, but also a bonus to their advance and charge rolls, so you really can get them into combat quickly and start to tear things up. So it is a good, solid, playable set, albeit I would say it's maybe one that isn't quite as exciting if you did want to go in heavy on the Marines and the power armor side of things, because if you do want to do that and really go heavy on that Black Legion style, I think the Veterans box is probably just better. You get everything you get in the Combat Patrol apart from the Cultists and the Master of Possession. You get the Marines, you get the Possessed, but you also get some Terminators, you get some Chosen, and you get the fancy new Chaos Lord. So if you were really keen on doing a Power Armor Terminator Black Legion specific styled list, I do think the Veterans box is probably just a little bit better than the Combat Patrol, even though you are paying more for it. On the topic of cost though, at the usual £95, you are looking at current prices, although that is liable to change based on the article that GW put up today, which I'm not going to do a video on, but obviously price increases suck, everyone knows that. But in terms of current prices, you are looking at £22.50 for the Master of Possession, £30 for the Cultists, £37.50 for the Possessed, and £40 for 10 Legionaries. So all told, that is £139. So you are saving around £44, basically getting you all 10 Chaos Marines for free. And again, as we've come to expect in terms of percentage savings, this is looking to net you around 32% off retail price. So it's fairly standard, it's nothing too spectacular, it's nothing higher or lower than what we would expect. But again, you are getting that rather nice 450 or so points of chaos compared to some of the smaller combat patrols, so it is, as I've said, a really great way to start a new Chaos army, I think. So I do like the combat patrol. I like both battle forces, and I think you could make a case for buying either or any of them or all of them if you were building a specific army. But if it were me and I was starting a new Chaos army, I'm very much Black Legion, like power armor focused. I really like that kind of stuff. So if it was me, I would probably be looking to pick up the Combat Patrol and the Veterans box. And if you get both of them together from GW, that is going to cost you around £225, and it gets you 2 great HQs in the Master of Possession and the new Chaos Lord. It gets you 20 Space Marines. It gets you 10 Terminators, 10 Possessed, 5 Chosen, and the 10 Cultists just to round things out. So those 2 boxes get you a really, really fun, thematic, solid army. It's just a shade under 1400 points. So again, with a couple of enhancements, you could be sitting at 1450, maybe even nearer 1500 points for under £250. So I think it's actually a very decent little way to start a cool, thematic, Black Legion style force. All the models are new-ish, all the models look great, they are fairly decent from a rules perspective, and it is just a relatively cheap for GW way to get a 1500 point army. And I mean, if you're buying it from a third party like Element Games, that could be nearer £200. So getting a 1500 point army pretty much out of 2 boxes for around £200 is very, very good going, I think, especially if you want those Marines, those Terminators, those Possessed, and those sort of power armor units. So that is the new Chaos Combat Patrol. I do think it's a good one. I think it's a fun one. I think you get a decent amount in it, and I do think that it combos very, very well with some of the battle forces that they are also releasing. So you can very easily double up and get even more to get a bigger starting force. So I do quite like it. I just think it's better in concert with something like the Veterans box personally. But as always, I'd love to know your thoughts. Do you like it? Do you think the Battle Force boxes are just better in terms of value for money? And I'd also love to know, will you be picking up the Combat Patrol? Will you be going for my idea of getting the Combat Patrol and maybe one of the Battle Force boxes? Or do you just not think that any of them are worth it? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe for more Warhammer content from me. But until next time, I'll catch you later, guys.